I've built a team of 12 A players in my SMMA that take care of every single part of the business. At this point, I only have to work a couple hours a week, and we're still consistently pulling in over $100,000 a month in revenue with over 70% margins. My goal with this video is to give you the exact framework you should follow to hire for your own agency, no matter if it is a copywriter, a media buyer, a video editor, whatever. The same process applies. So first of all, you don't want to hire freelancers. There are many reasons behind it, but the most fundamental one is that freelancers work on a per project basis. They don't see themselves as an actual part of your team, so they can at any point stop working with you. They can begin constantly demanding higher salaries, fitting in other projects. They can get swamped with other agencies also wanting their work. So it's just not a way to actually build a team. Freelance is good if you need a little help in it, like some certain week you need just a couple more hands on deck if stuff is getting messy, but it shouldn't be the main way to build your business, because you're not actually building a business. You're just building a collective of different freelancers. You're just this glorified middleman that's basically connecting Upwork freelancers with other businesses. I hope you get the point. So remember, these are people that will work full-time in your business. This will be what they spend most of their waking hours doing, 8 to 10 hours a day. They will be focused on your business. You don't want to have them part-time either, because again, you're not achieving that full focus effect. They will still be doing stuff on the side, but yeah, just don't hire freelancers. That's my main point here. Second of all, don't hire until you understand the task deeply yourself. This one is very important, and not a lot of people talk about this, especially if you look at Iman Gadzhi and all of these guys that kind of popularized the SMMA model. Their advice is, as soon as you get a client, initially go and find a contractor to do the work. But it's such a messed up model because you don't understand the task yourself. So you're not able to hire an expert. You're not able to pay them what they're worth. I'll get into all of that in a second. But main point is that you don't understand the task yourself. So if you're trying to hire a media buyer and you don't understand how to do the media buying, you won't be able to hire an expert because you don't know what to look for in them, and you won't be able to effectively manage them because you don't know how to gauge if they're doing a good job, if they're not doing a good job, if they become sick a certain week, and let's say you have to take over. What are you going to be doing if you don't understand the job yourself? It's so important for you to understand every task in the agency deeply yourself before you begin outsourcing, and it's not that difficult. This isn't rocket science where I'm asking you to be able to build a rocket and only then begin hiring people for the different parts. It's an agency. You're doing marketing. It's not the most advanced thing in the world. It took me maybe 6 months to get proficient in the whole ad space to then be able to hire someone effectively. So don't make the mistake of immediately running out and getting someone on that role when you don't understand it deeply yourself. Next, what I was just mentioning earlier, don't hire until you can actually afford to pay someone what they are worth. So you don't want to have these, Indian media buyers that have just started with media buying that you're paying $700 a month, $5 an hour. That's not, again, the way to build an actual business. We want to build a business here, and that requires laying the foundations from day one. You can't build this hack job setup with freelancers paying everyone $5 a month, and then in 5 months when you're doing some revenue think, okay, now I'm actually going to begin building a team and actually going to begin building a business, because it's already all built on fragile fundamentals. So you want to build properly from day one. So don't hire, as I said, until you understand the task deeply yourself, and don't hire until you can actually afford to pay a senior. Pay them what they're worth. You never want to be undercutting your employees, because again, that doesn't build a proper business. So for media buyers, you should expect to pay about $5,000 a month. For graphic designers, about $2,000 a month. These are full-time rates. Copywriters, $2,000 to $3,000 a month. And for setters and closers, it should be a performance based on per booking or as a percentage of the total sales that they make. So no fixed amount there. They could be making $15,000, $20,000 a month with you. No worries, as long as you're making, $150,000 or $200,000 a month. So no real cap there. Remember that when you're hiring, you want at least 100 applicants, ideally 200 plus. So you don't want to be hiring someone after only getting 10 applicants, taking 2 interviews, and then hiring the best out of those 2. You want to have a good volume of applicants so that you can be sure that you've actually found the right person and not just hire out of necessity and out of scarcity because you can't find more people. There are hundreds of thousands of media buyers out there. There are hundreds of thousands of graphic designers. So if you're not able to collect, 200 applicants, you're doing something wrong. But I'll teach you exactly how to do that in a second. And lastly, also just mentioned that pay your people well. You should have generous bonus structures. You should have a solid retainer at the bottom. Our people make like top percentile money especially for the countries they live in. We never try to like undercut them or try to save money by paying employees less. You should expect a lot from them. You should be demanding. They should be worth what you're paying them tenfold, but you should force them and work with them to make them so valuable that you can pay them, 2 times the normal market rate and still get 10x value from them. That's kind of the approach I have to hiring. So first of all, how do we actually hire? The technical stuff. So step 1 is the job application. So you make a job application or a job description in a Google Doc. So this is going to be the biggest filter for applicants coming in. It's important that you spend some time making this properly. It should be highly detailed and it should be highly demanding. So it's just a Google document explaining exactly what the role is. And when people read through it, they should feel like this is demanding. This is going to be difficult because again, we are expecting a lot from our employees. We are paying them well, but it's not for everyone. So you want this job description to filter out everyone who's lazy, who just wants to log in for 6 hours a day, mess around and then log off. We want people that are dedicated, that are going to be putting in the hours. So the idea here is that unqualified people should just not click through after reading this application. Of course, you will still have, call them idiots, that just swipe down and click apply and then apply without actually reading the job description, but it's going to be much less. It's going to also optimize your qualification process down the line because you're not getting as many unqualified people. So the parts to include in this job application is you have to explain that you value results over everything. And this kind of goes into the whole topic of putting in the hours. Like if we aren't generating results, we are expecting people to put in 10, 12 hours a day. We expect them to log on Saturday and Sunday because results is everything in the agency game. If you've seen any of my other videos, I keep hammering that home. That goes for acquisition, that goes for your personal management of the agency, that goes for your employees. This should be like the core fundamental understanding you have with your employees. Next, include who thrives at your agency. Describe the person who would be the best fit for your specific role. For us, that is a person who is active, like trains MMA or runs. We see that as a common pattern within everyone who does well at Curve. They also have some kind of physical activities that they do outside of work. They don't just sit on the couch and watch YouTube videos. Explain kind of their age, their gender, how they like to approach life. Remember that you can use their personal life for qualification in the job process. Of course, you don't want to be digging too deep into their personal lives, but a lot of what they do in their personal lives is also going to tell you about how they are going to do the job. So use those things to your advantage and explain kind of what, as I said, the main traits are of people that do well at your agency or that you expect them to have, basically. Next, what you'll own. So that's point number 3 in this job description. Explain what they will be owning, exactly what they will be responsible for, what they will be managing, which results they will be personally responsible for, and explain that we have very strict responsibilities. So if something goes wrong, you will receive questions. Since you're responsible, you will be the one responsible for actually answering if stuff goes wrong, but also when stuff goes well. So when stuff goes well, you will receive praise, you will receive performance bonuses. It's not like this wishy-washy structure where one person tells another and then that person does something and then reverts back and then the third person gets connected and you ask who's actually responsible, and everyone is just shrugging I told him, and then you go to him and he tells you, oh no, but I told that guy to do it. And then just you have to have very strict responsibilities and explain exactly what each person owns. Number 4 to include in the job description is about your culture. So as you can see, a lot of this is about just personal traits and how they work and what to expect from the job. And that's exactly the beauty of this job description, because the technical skills aren't the most important thing. You want to hire for attitude and then train for skills. That's also one of the most fundamental approaches I have to hiring. Let me repeat that. hire for attitude, train for skills. So if you find someone who is really willing to learn, they're young, they're ambitious, they're hungry, they want to work with you, but their technical skills are lacking, hire that person. Train them how to do the work, because they will be trainable if they have the right attitude. And that will be a person that's going to stay with you for 3, 4, 5, 10 years and won't be, switching jobs. They will do their work diligently. So attitude stumps everything. And that's why we spend so much time in this job description actually, filtering for the attitude that they have. So number 4, as I said, about the culture, explain the culture in your agency. In my case, it's again, a lot of like physical exercise. We are demanding to each other. We are very clear in our communication. We have very clear like hierarchies, who you should talk to about each question. It's okay to give other people feedback saying, hey, I don't really like the way you've done it here. What about doing it this way? We are very like straightforward, and we work hard, but at the same time, we also party hard. Like last summer in June, we flew out our entire team to Marbella. We rented like this big ass villa somewhere in the mountains outside of Marbella. We bought everyone flight tickets. Like, which other agency does that, really? Especially for those people that had only been with us for like a couple months. We had this one Google Ads media buyer. She was with us for like 2 months before we bought her tickets to come to Spain and just chill in this like team retreat for a week. Just explain those things. Explain that we work hard, but we also play hard. And of course, if that doesn't apply for your agency, don't lie. But yeah, just mold it to whatever your situation is. 5th, what to include in this job description is the offer. So don't give any specific salary ranges, because you can kind of tweak those salary ranges based on where that person is from and their like experience level, stuff like that. You never actually know exactly how much you're going to be paying for a role until the end of the process. So don't give a specific salary, but explain the offer. So you will have this many weeks on vacation. You will have these work hours, this like amount of meetings approximately per week. Just explain like what the job actually entails and all the technical stuff around that. Introduce the team. So we do that in all job descriptions. We have Alex, we have my co-founder, we have this guy, just listing out every single member of the team, what they do exactly. And you can also like add some cool tidbits explaining like he's a killer in like creative strategy, been with our agency for 2 years, whatever it is. Explain the essential requirements. So that's number 7. Here is where we are getting more into like the technical stuff. Like ideally, you should have a couple years of media buying experience, because of course, if you find someone with a great attitude and they have the technical skills, that's perfect. So we want to filter for those people. But what I was saying earlier about attitude, you want to prefer the attitude over the skills if you have to choose. So just list the essential requirements, how much they should have worked in that specific field, what kind of client sizes. So if it's a media buyer, it's usually like how much spend they've managed per month max, how many clients they've worked with at the same time per month, stuff like that. And then at the end, you have a link to a tally form. So it's just a questionnaire. It doesn't have to be tally. We just like tally because it has some cool integrations with Notion that I'll get back to in a second. But point is, they read through this job description, they click on the link, and they get sent to an actual questionnaire where they have to fill out their application. So here on the first slide, you just again reiterate who exactly you're looking for. So just condense the entire job description into like a couple sentences to again just force people that aren't qualified to not apply. So if they again read that and still apply, hopefully they are already qualified. You ask for their info, so their age, their name, where they're from, how much work experience they have, stuff like that. You ask for their resume. Then you do like some technical questions, like which platforms have you worked with? How much have you spent? What like are your main strategies for advertising? Just kind of get a feel for how they actually do their work and what they have worked with previously. And then at the end, and this is important and this is key, ask them to record a Loom of themselves introducing themselves. So a personalized Loom video, you want it to be personalized to your agency. Oftentimes I see people attaching just a Loom they recorded like 9 months ago, because Loom tells you when that Loom was recorded. So oftentimes I go in the application, click on it, and it's like 9 months ago. I immediately just delete that application because I specifically ask the person to record a Loom introducing themselves to this specific job. And if they're not willing to do that, if they just don't want to put in, 2 minutes required to record a Loom, they're not going to be a correct hire for us. So immediately that just weeds out like half the people that actually apply for the job. And the second cool thing with the Loom is that it gives you such a good understanding of the person, the way they speak, which things they decide to focus on in the Loom, what they begin telling you about, how they, structure the information. You oftentimes can see if people are lying as well, because a lot of people don't know how to lie. So just looking at the Loom, you see that they kind of get a bit queasy and stuff when they mention some kind of numbers. So that kind of points you where to maybe dig deeper to understand exactly what their experience entails, stuff like that. So very, very important part of the process, this Loom video. And as I said, everyone without a Loom, get them out, and everyone with a generic Loom that isn't specifically to your agency, get them out, just mark them unqualified and move on with the other applicants. For this last step, the tally, as I said, we have some cool automations. So we have connected Tally and Notion so that when someone applies in Tally, they click submit, their application is sent to a database we have in Notion. So we make a new database for every single new hire, and it just like stacks up with applicants. So with time you have, 50, 100, 150 applicants. And the way we do it is that we just have a select toggle, either qualified or unqualified, and it makes my job so easy. I just walk through the list. It takes me like maybe 5 minutes a day when we're actively collecting applicants. I go through the job description, I go through the applicants, and I mark them either qualified or unqualified. And my assistant, my VA, does the rest. So every unqualified person just gets a quick email saying, hey, unfortunately, we weren't able to move forward with your interview, whatever. Just, I think it's a good gesture to always just feed back to people that unfortunately you're not going to be selected in this round, but maybe next time apply again. Just, not ghost people, because I feel like that's just normal, like morals and like hygiene in business. So always give people feedback when they're not qualified, but when they are qualified, she reaches out, finds a time and books them in my calendar, ideally like back to back, so that let's say in a week on Thursday, I have like 5 interviews back to back, so that I can just get into like an interview mode and just talk to everyone that way. So it only takes me like 5 minutes a day to actually qualify people once this whole system is up and running. I don't have to do any of the outreach. It just, saves me so many hours. So use that as a quick tip. Next, how do you actually get applicants? So that was step number 1, making the job application, making the tally, connecting everything so that it's easy for you to manage. Now we have to actually feed this new funnel that we have created with new applicants. Well, there are a couple ways, 3 ways to be specific. So we have organic, we have ads, and we have poaching. So organic, just post on every job board possible. Post on Indeed, post on LinkedIn, post on ZipRecruiter, Zoho, 100 hires, like just find every job board you can find and just post it there. You want to get as much volume as possible. Secondly, ads. This is where I believe we have found most of our employees. So make a job posting on LinkedIn and put some ad spend behind it. So spend, like 20, 30 bucks a day. Because especially like when you're already hiring, you're already probably doing a bit of revenue, and finding that right person is worth so much more than, the $1,000 you would maybe spend on the ads. So it's really worth it to put some spend behind it to make sure that you get as many applicants as possible. You can also run ads on Meta and Google. So if LinkedIn is a bit slow, you can make specific ads for Meta, calling out your exact ICP, set up some nice targeting, and just feed the funnel that way. Or also Google. So people searching for media buyer, job application, stuff like that, get them to apply through your website, or you can just send them directly to the actual job description. Last but not least is poaching. So poaching is the process of basically stealing employees from other businesses, in our case, other agencies. So the way you do it is that you find the best agencies in your industry. You should already probably have an understanding of who your main competitors are. You find their employees on LinkedIn and you send them a message. So I know some people don't like poaching. There is this like history of Steve Jobs, for example, poaching from Microsoft, or the other way around. Like someone was poaching from Apple, I think, and he sent him a message saying, hey, like either you guys stop poaching or we will begin poaching from you guys. So it is a bit of like warfare type approach to getting employees, but I think it's completely okay. Because if you can offer people a better place to work and better terms and give them more growth, why would you not do that? You're just creating a positive effect on the world. So I don't see an issue with poaching. If you do, you can ignore this. But the point is, you find their employees on LinkedIn, you send them a message, and the message should be super simple. So you say, hey, we are currently hiring for this and that role. If you want more growth and more opportunities, let me know, let's talk. If not, completely fine. So very soft CTA, just quickly introduce that you're hiring for that specific role. If they say, no, I'm already happy, no worries, you just move on. If they are interested, you again just book in an interview, send them the job description again, make them read it to make sure that they're actually qualified, get them to apply, and then you just book in the interview. You can also ask around your network. If you've begun building a LinkedIn profile, for example, which is something I also preach as a way to get clients for your agency, you will probably have a lot of people in your network that either are a media buyer or either know a media buyer or a copywriter, whatever the role is. I'm using media buyer in this video as an example, but this applies to any kind of role. So you can also ask around your network, make a post on LinkedIn, just bombard the internet with your job description, get as many applicants as possible, because as I said, again, you want at least 200, like 100 minimum, but aim for 200 to just make sure that you find that right person. So this is how we get applicants. We get them to actually appear in this Notion database that I just told you about. Now we have to actually go through the interview process. So you go through, you look at their applications, everyone that's not qualified, everyone that like doesn't either have the attitude or the skills that you just don't see a future with, you just mark them as unqualified. Everyone who is like either a 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, you only want to book in interviews with people that you see as a 10 out of 10 just based on their job application. You book those in, and that's where like the interesting part actually starts. And this is like the time consuming part. So you don't want to be booking in with everyone all the time. You want to only, as I said, book in with the best people possible. So you start with a simple 30-minute preliminary interview. You can outsource this part with time, but in the beginning, just do it yourself. So the way this works, those 30 minutes, is that you just set the agenda for the entire hiring process. So you want to explain exactly what's going to be happening next, which I am explaining to you now. You introduce yourself, just like 30 seconds quickly. Hey, I'm the agency owner. We've been in business for this long. We work with these types of clients. Just get all the, niceties and small talk out the way, and then you begin qualifying them. So this is all about qualifying them and making sure that they are the right person or not the right person for your agency. So ask them about their current situation. Where are they working? If they're not working, why aren't they working? Did they get kicked out, or did they leave their previous job themselves? It tells you a lot about where that person is mentally. Ask about technical skills. So prepare some kind of like technical questions saying, okay, with this new Meta Andromeda update that dropped this summer, how have you changed your media buying processes, for example? And just listen to them talk about media buying, how they approach different questions, how they explain it. Are they like super over-explanatory, or is he able to, condense the information really quickly? And you get the point. Just ask them about technical stuff. It will give you a very good gut feeling about how good that person is. And again, this is why you don't hire people until you actually understand the role yourself, because if you do, you're not going to be able to ask these questions and actually understand if the person is good for you or not. Next, culture. Ask about which type of situation they like to work in. Do they like to be very individual? Do they like to be part of a team? Do they hate meetings? Do they love meetings? Just understand how they prefer structuring their workday. Pre-frame the job. So again, explain that this is going to be a difficult job. We are going to be demanding a lot of you. This is going to be the most both unforgiving and the most valuable place you've ever worked, because of the demands you set, but also the rewards that they get for that. Ask about their expectations. So before you present any kind of like salary ranges, ask about how much salary they're expecting to receive. I thought this was such a crazy thing to do, but then I just began asking on these preliminary interviews, and everyone always has a number, and it just makes your life so much easier. Because if someone says, I want 15K a month starting salary, and it's a media buyer, you're like, nice, but good luck. Look somewhere else, because it just doesn't make sense. Or if it's low, it allows you to maybe start with a lower retainer and then have more performance bonuses to actually drive them to put in the effort and earn more that way. You get the point. It's just a good way for negotiation to always get a number from the other person first. It goes for everything in life, not just for hiring. Lastly, Just explain the agency really quickly, what kind of team they would be working with, how many people they would be contacting on a daily basis, if they would be communicating with clients or not. You get the point. Just quickly explain how the agency is structured. And at the end, note down your gut feeling. So after like talking through all of this, you should have a pretty good gut feeling about this person. It doesn't have to actually be based on any like technical stuff you write down. Just note down your gut feeling, whatever you're feeling about this person. Would they be a good fit? Would they not? Write that down and then keep going through the interviews. You want to do at least 10 of these interviews before you begin sending out test tasks, which is the next like part. But point is, you want to have some kind of volume here as well. You don't want to just have one interview, one test task, and then hire that person. You want at least like 5 people that go all the way through that you actually give offers to then decide who you want to be working with. So let's say they went through this 30-minute preliminary interview, they are qualified, everything looks good. We want to do a test task. So we want to gauge their technical capabilities and we want to gauge their attitude to how they actually complete work. So this whole concept of a test task in itself is pretty demanding. Not a lot of agencies and just jobs in general do that. So if they at all say yes to doing this test task, that's already a positive sign. And the other thing they do that we do here with this test task is that we set very tight deadlines. So this is interesting. So let's say I have this like preliminary interview at 2 p.m. with someone. I say, this looks good. I want to do a test task with you. They say, okay, let's do it. I send them the test task and I give them a deadline that evening so that they have to do it immediately. They have like 4 hours to do the task. It shouldn't take more than like an hour or two for them to do it, but we want to set super tight deadlines, not because I want to receive it quickly, but because I want to gauge their attitude to their work. Are they willing to do it ASAP, or are they going to say, oh no, unfortunately, I'm going to have to do this early next week or whatever? That's a red flag, because stuff in the agency oftentimes can't be, prolonged until next week. It has to be done immediately. So this is a very good way to actually test their attitude towards working. We haven't really had much issue with this, but it's been a couple cases where I send the test task, they say, yes, let's do it. And then it's like a week later, they send it over. I'm like, it's stupid. I told you to do it the same day and it's been a week. So immediately you can just, remove that person from the process because they're not going to be a good hire for you. So the idea with this test task is that it should reflect a real world scenario. So something they would actually be doing at the agency. So if it's a media buying case, like if it's a media buyer you're hiring for, present an actual media buying case. So let's say you maybe share like screenshots of the account saying, okay, week over week, the CPA increased by 20%. How would you analyze what happened and eventually rectify the issue, and just get them to walk through it? Again, Loom is also fine. Just get them to talk through their process, how they're thinking, how they would approach the case. And yeah, just give them a real world scenario that they would potentially meet in your agency. It will tell you so much about their technical skills and, as I said, their attitude towards the job. So you've done the test task. As I said, you want at least like 5 people to walk through this test task, ideally more. And at the end, it's just about selecting the person you have the best gut feeling for. Again, your gut feeling is a very strong driver, and it tells you a lot about a person that you're talking with. You don't have to always be super technical in your analysis, like comparing these employees, like this guy has only managed 300,000 a month while this guy has managed 500,000 a month. That's why this guy is better. No, just listen to your gut feeling. You've already asked all the right questions. You've gotten all the information you need. Your heart will tell you who the right person is. It may sound like such a non-business thing to say, to listen to your gut feeling and not actually do technical analysis, but that's the way I've hired the best people. Just going with my gut, because there's always something to that person we hire that I really liked. I'm not able to explain it maybe in words, but then they turn out to be the best employee ever. So listen to your gut, select that person. At that point, it's just about booking in a final call to present your offer and negotiate pay. And then you book in the onboarding process. So actually getting them onboarded to your agency. And that's the 4th step to this whole process. So you've selected, you've made the job description, you've gotten applicants, you've gone through the process, you've selected who you want to work with, you've negotiated pay. Now we have to actually onboard them to your agency. So the way this works is that you just sign a contract, super simple. You do a 1-hour call to introduce them to your agency. So like an onboarding call like you would have with a client, just with your employee. You explain exactly how the systems work. So this is our Asana system. This is how we manage to-dos. These are all the documents. We have SOPs. This is what to look for, where to look for stuff. This is who you're going to be responsible for. Like if they have some people under them, this is who you should be talking to based on like the questions you have. So if you have a technical question, ask this guy. If you have this type of question, ask this guy. Just introduce them to the agency, make them understand exactly how to do their work effectively. You give them a list of documents and SOPs they have to read. So make this onboarding package of documents that you share with all new employees. And again, it's like technical stuff, how your like to-do lists work, how your reporting works, what the actual like time expectations are, hours per day, all of that stuff. Get them to read through it, because it would take you like 5 hours in a call to explain everything, while you can make this package of initial SOPs once and then just use it for all new onboardings. Add them to all your systems. Slowly hand over responsibilities. So if it's a media buyer, don't immediately give them 10 accounts to manage. For the first like 2 weeks, get them to shadow you. Get them to just watch what you're doing in the accounts, have them ask you questions, jump on daily calls the first week. So every single day, the first week, have like just daily 15-minute chats where you just ask, how are you doing? Like, they will have a ton of questions about how the agency is structured, especially like specifically the accounts. If it's a media buyer, what the process is, who is managing it, stuff like that. Just have daily chats with them to onboard them effectively. And as I said, slowly hand over responsibilities. So first like week or two, don't give them any accounts to manage. Make them like give you ideas and just have them explain what they would do if they were managing the account. And once you feel comfortable with handing over the accounts, you can hand over one and you see how that goes. So for a week, you have them just manage that one account, and then you give them 2 more accounts and then 2 more accounts. And within like 4 or 5 weeks, they should be at their max capacity managing as many accounts as they can. Just don't, as I said, hand over all of the accounts immediately, because if it turns out that you've onboarded them poorly, or they just turn out to be a not good employee and you've already handed over 10 accounts, they can mess stuff up and you will lose a ton of clients and it's going to be a mess, and you're going to lose out on so much money just because you tried to rush this process. So don't rush it. In terms of calls, as I said, first week, have daily 15-minute chats. For the second week, have calls every other day. Third week, once a week. And then fourth week, they should be onboarded and you shouldn't really need any new onboarding calls. Of course, let them book in stuff with you if they have questions, but on the fourth week, you should be good to go without needing any consistent calls. Evaluate their performance on a daily and a monthly basis. So once a month, sit down, like dig through the accounts, see how they are developing. Have they increased ROAS and spend? Have they decreased ROAS and spend? You will pretty quickly understand if they're actually doing a good job or not, because they can be task fulfilling, they can have a good attitude, but if they just don't have the technical skills, for example, they could still be tanking the account. So on the surface, everything looks good, because when you jump on a call, they're like, oh, holly jolly, everything looks good. But then you begin analyzing the accounts and maybe stuff is going poorly, so that you can actually, tackle that issue and give them the technical training they need. So once a month, just sit down and dig through their accounts to understand how they are doing. So congrats, you've onboarded your employee. Those were the 4 steps to actually doing that. So making the job application, getting applicants, the interview process, and the onboarding. I have a small bonus for you, and that's step 5, and that's the pay structure. So how do you actually pay those people? So first of all, as I said, if it's not a sales role, have a fixed salary in those ranges that I mentioned earlier, and have performance bonuses tied directly to the performance. So if it is a media buyer, give them a percentage of the performance they earn for your agency. So let's say with your clients, you charge 10% of ad spend. For example, I don't recommend charging a percentage of ad spend, but let's say you do. So you charge your clients 10% of ad spend, give your media buyer 1% of ad spend. So if they spend, let's say 100K more on your account, on your client's account, your agency makes 10K more, while your media buyer makes 1,000 more. So have them directly tied to the performance of the agency and how much your agency earns, because it's such a no-brainer. If you make 10K more, pay your media buyer 1,000 more, no issue, you're still 9K in the green and your media buyer is much, much happier. So have it tied directly, as said, to performance. And for like other roles like graphic designers, video editors, copywriters, stuff like that, This one is a bit more tricky because it's very hard to track the like specific performance that they generate through their work. So have it be a bonus for the percentage of designs delivered on time, for example. So let's say you have an expectation of them delivering 7 unique like designs per day, for example, 7 statics per day for a graphic designer. Just pay them a performance bonus if they do it 95% of the time. So at the end of the month, you sit down, you look at how many delivered. If 95% is on time, give them, a $500 or $1,000 bonus, for example. It's still very motivating, and it still has a direct impact on the results because you're able to test ads quickly. You're just not able to gauge exactly how much revenue each ad makes. It just becomes a mess. So have it as close to what they do as possible. So you don't want to have like 5 steps between this process where a media buyer does something which impacts another part of the agency, which impacts their email marketing, and then you give them a bonus on the email marketing, because then like the media buyer isn't able to see the exact results he's generating. You want to have people be able to put it in some kind of work and immediately see a result from that. It makes managing your agency much easier, and it also motivates your employees much more. So that's it. If you want my help scaling your agency, I work with agency owners like yourself on everything from getting clients to building a team like I just described, to delivering the service, every single part of the agency. I work with agency owners like yourself one-on-one for 4 months to scale your agency and implement all the systems I have implemented in my own agency that I've scaled to $125,000 a month. I still actively run it, so still the agency is my main gig. I still get better every single day. It's not like a thing where I shut down my agency to do this mentorship model. It's not a course. It's a direct one-on-one thing where you have access to me and only me and my calendar to booking calls whenever you need. So if that sounds interesting, reach out to me on Instagram. Let's talk about it. Other than that, thank you for watching and have an amazing week.